Hello and welcome to Fridays on Excellence show, where we dig into 6 areas of life, see what we can find to become more excellent. My name is Scott Kokenauer, and I'm your host for this next 20-30 minutes. So glad that you've taken time out to tune in. We are recording live on Facebook and YouTube and live on Clubhouse as well. So welcome to those of you who are joining on the new Clubhouse channel. If you're not on Clubhouse and you want to get on there, and you're already on Clubhouse, but you're not in the room, just search Serving Strong and join the room titled How to Beat Pandemic Fatigue, going on right now. So those of you listening on a podcast, welcome to you as well. So let's dive right into our first segment of the show, the 3 coaching questions. Let me pull them up. The first one is, where is your happy place? That's the first coaching question. The second coaching question, how has the pandemic hit you? How has the pandemic hit you? Question number 3, in what or who do you hope? In what or in whom do you hope? Where do you place your hope? Now, those are your 3 coaching questions, and that's the first segment of our show. Their power is in how you keep them in front of mind all week long. They're not designed to be answered today. They're designed for you to ride them around for a week. Keep them visible. Think about them every day. After all, it all comes down to the walk. All right. So let's go into our second segment, which is the 2 pillars of excellence. And with me, I have asked Dr. Jeannie Miller-Clarkson to join us. She is the author of, let me think here. I have it here. The Emotionally Intelligent Pastor. I know you're screaming in your mind saying, tell us. So, the pandemic event has been a long, drawn-out period of uncertainty for all of us. As the terms pandemic fatigue, Zoom fatigue have started showing up in our vocabulary, how do we make sense of it all? So Jeannie is here to help us go through this. And like I said, she's the author of The Emotionally Intelligent Pastor and has a lot of great insights into the emotional part of life. This is the section, the system that we're looking at is our emotional excellence. Jeannie, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Scott.
Now, before we talk about the 2 pillars, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and who you serve.
Okay. Well, I'm a Christian psychologist, and I operate a Christian counseling practice that's multi-site, multi-staff in the greater Ohio and Southeast Michigan areas. But my real focus is on strengthening and equipping leaders in the area of emotional intelligence and helping them through that to be emotionally healthy, passionate, energized, and relationally savvy, influential, and effective in their work.
Okay. I want to go to our first pillar now, and that is stay in touch with the big picture. Now, you just recently posted on LinkedIn about the importance of staying in touch with your big vision, your mission, the big picture. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and why that's important?
Yeah, I think all of us, but even more so when we're dealing with these challenges, the fatigue, the wear of the news, we've had to do things different. We've got problems, we've got busyness. Some things work well, some things don't work well. So we're down in the everyday nitty gritty stuff. And it's really important for us to come back out sort of to the mountaintop, because we're so zoomed in, we can become consumed by that. And then we can end up feeling more fatigued, burned out, stressed, frustrated. And it's important to zoom out and to get back in touch again with, okay, what is our purpose? we all have different ways of phrasing that, but what has God called us to do? What is our purpose? What is our overall vision and strategy? And that really helps put our problems in perspective too. It helps us to be energized. I find that when I get back in touch with writing out my vision, and we try to review it every Friday as well, our vision and our mission. And when I get back in touch with that, I feel renewed, because that's the area of my passion, all of our passion. If what we're doing is at the center of our passion, going back and reviewing the big picture, our vision, our mission, what we feel called to, is going to be re-energizing for us. And it's going to help clarify and see things in perspective.
I'm going to put myself on the counselor's couch and ask you a personal question for me. Okay, so I work at home. I am currently sitting in my son's old bedroom. And I spend a lot of time looking at my computer. I've got windows behind me, but I have them blocked off to make it darker. Okay. So I'm not really able to look outside very often. I will have an hour-long coaching session with one client, 10-minute break, go to another coaching session, which takes a lot of, as life coaches, they'll understand it takes a lot out of a coach. And then take a small break and get on another call, just 3-4 hours straight. I like the phrase zooming out, because it kind of fits with Zoom fatigue, zooming in. And what would be a good practical thing for me after having 3 back-to-back meetings? How could I zoom out? What's an example?
One example would be, on a nice day like today, go walk around the yard, look at some trees for a few minutes.
So getting ourselves out of a confined space and get into a more expansive physical space.
Yes. And that is part of the problem with what you're talking about, is even more than one-on-one meetings, the Zoom is requiring us to sit still in one spot, which is not good for us, and stare at a computer screen. So, our eyes are fatigued. Our body, it's not natural for our body. So getting up and getting around, walking, maybe talking to God, maybe doing whatever you enjoy for those a little bit of time to kind of get back to yourself.
So I imagine in my previous work situation, I was in an office setting. I would work in an office. Someone would come in and we'd talk, and then I'd get up and go get some water, go to the kitchenette, and that was just natural. It isn't natural here. I'm the only one here, except for my English Springer Spaniel.
Yeah, you're not going to want to take your computer with you while you're,
Right. So that's good. That's good. Take a break. So let's move on to the second pillar. And this is partially a part of the whole construct of emotional intelligence, being self-aware, being others aware. So be aware of your emotions. Emotions can be all over the place during the pandemic. My feeling is if we aren't more emotionally intelligent, we risk doing damage to our relationships. What are the core principles of emotional intelligence that we need to be reminded about in these times?
You're right, Scott, because when, change is stressful for all of us, having to do things differently. And then this long drawn out process, we're tired. And if we're not paying attention to ourselves, we can get more stressed, not even realizing it. And eventually it's going to spill out onto other people, even if we don't intend for that to happen. So we do need to be aware of ourselves. And there's 2 things I would recommend that would really help. One is pay attention, mind your self-care. Whatever thing, mind your self-care. The second one would be mind your headspace, because your headspace affects your emotions. But mind your self-care is counterintuitive, because during extra stress or when things aren't going so well, we're discouraged, the most natural thing to do is let go of some of our strategies that we've already found, whether it's exercise or healthy eating or, reflection time, spiritual connection, all those things. We have a tendency to let those slip, where the truth is we actually need those more, not less. And if we let those go, the stresses are going to build up more.
Okay. Talk to the person who just heard you say that and said, that sounds selfish.
It's not selfish. I think of being on an airplane and they tell you, if you're with a child, do not put, or some other person, do not put their oxygen mask on first. Put your own on first, because otherwise, we could pass out. If we don't take care of ourselves, we're not going to be able in the long run to meet other people's needs most effectively.
Okay. So you're actually others centered when you take care of yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's not self-centered to take care of ourselves. It's a matter of stewardship. It's a matter of, taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was going to go on to the second one about mind your headspace, but you may have a comment about that.
No, go right ahead. That's great.
Mind your headspace. I'd like to share just a brief story. Early in the pandemic, when everything was hitting, as a counseling center, so overnight we had to move to teletherapy, which I knew nothing about. Develop all the policies, procedures, get the platforms, train everybody on it, just almost overnight. And I didn't know anything about it myself. So, and then listening, as we all were, to this news, which, the news was bad, but of course the news media tends to increase the drama. That's just part of what, sells. But it was bad. And so I found myself one morning at the kitchen table, and I felt so overwhelmed that I just had this paralysis come over me. I just felt completely paralyzed. And after a while, I shook myself out of it and I said, I've got to get a grip here. So I decided at that moment that I'm going to view this as an opportunity. And even though not everything is fun and there's a lot of bad things, but I'm also going to view it as fun to some extent, that I'm going to move towards the challenges and the opportunities of this and see it that way. And the other thing was I developed an image, which I would love to learn to surfboard someday. I have never done it, but it's something I really admire. And so I imagine a surfer, when you're out there and you're catching a wave, which we have a lot of waves these days, but you catch a wave. I'm imagining that if you stiffen up too much and get too tense, it's going to be bad. You got to kind of be loose and kind of go with it. And so that was my image of I'm going to ride the waves and look for the opportunities and the problems that come along. I'm just going to roll with it. And so I was able to keep that mental image in my head. And I never, not that I didn't have stressful times, but I never got back to that moment of paralysis. So we need to take care of ourselves and we need to mind our head space. What's going on in our head? Because whatever's going on our head is going to affect us emotionally. It's going to affect our relationships. It's going to come out.
I love the metaphor of surfing. That's you never know what any particular wave is going to do at any time, but you're leveraging the board, mm-hmm. and you are reacting in a positive way. You're just kind of staying loose, running with the rhythm.
Mm-hmm. Right. Rather, if we fight against it, it's going to be more stressful.
Right. Great advice. So what would be one action step for those listening, what's one action step that you would suggest that we do for 7 days?
Mhm. For 7 days, I suggest, if you're not already doing it, pick up a journal, just get a notebook and write. And what I would like for you to write is whatever your particular challenges or stresses are. They're different for all of us, but just write about them. That is another way of zooming out on our problems rather than just carrying them around in our heads and mulling over them. When we write them down, we get distance, we get more objectivity. We can like look at them. Now, some people actually do better just reflecting, going off in the woods or something and just thinking through it. But most people can benefit, I believe, from the journaling and writing it out. And that does a number of things. For one, when I look at what I've just written, I'm more in a problem and I can see it. I'm more problem and analysis mode. I'm more objective than when it's in my head. I also feel some relief of getting it out there. Emotional relief, write down whatever I'm thinking. You just put down whatever you want, whatever you think, whatever you feel, describe the problem however you want. And then at the end of that time would be to ask yourself 2 questions. And this can be brief. It could be a paragraph or it could be 2 pages, whatever you want to do. 2 questions. The first one is, where is the gem? Where's the diamond? And the second one is, what do I really need? Now, where is the diamond? Diamonds are formed under extreme pressure. And in every situation, just like the pandemic, every situation, there are going to be opportunities that we didn't have before that we can exploit. It might be for personal growth. It might be for our relationships. It might be for our organization. But there's something good here. And so that gets you looking at the problem, analyzing it, which is good, but then it brings you back out to what's the good here. So this is really going to help your headspace and your emotions. And then you're going to ask yourself, what do I really need? Because sometimes we get so into our problems, we forget about what we're needing. And maybe what we're needing is, I need more social connection. I'm feeling more lonely. Or maybe I just need a day off. But ask yourself the question after you've written this out and looked at it, what do I need?
Okay. Wow, that is solid advice. I'll tell you that I tend to do that quite a bit. I don't know if you probably didn't notice this. I always keep a stack of printer paper beside in a sort of mini whiteboard that I keep with me all the time. And for me, if there is a challenge or something I'm going through, I will do a spider diagram. Sometimes I'll do a drawing. Sometimes, journaling isn't just writing words and sentences and paragraphs like an author. So those of you listening here are thinking, I can't journal. I don't like to journal. I don't want to worry about grammar and all that sort of thing. It doesn't have to be writing, but I do agree with you. There is a therapeutic element to getting it out of your head, down your arm, out of your hand, and onto paper. I know for me, when I can look at my notes, I feel like I'm on top. I feel like I'm on the balcony looking down on them, which gives me that sense, that locus of control.
Yes.
Very, very good, helpful. And go ahead. You were going to say.
I was going to say that's a good point, Scott. It doesn't always have to be words. It can be pictures. However you want it to be.
Right.
Whatever describes it for you.
So, Jeannie, there was a method to my madness when I asked you that one action step, because we start off with 3 coaching questions. We move to 2 pillars of excellence, which we've done, which leads us to the 3rd and final segment, and that is one takeaway. So I thought I would just ask you what that takeaway was. And those of you listening, let's do the Journal your cares. And embedded in this takeaway is ask the two questions. Where's the gem and what do I really need? Beautiful. It gives us something to do. It gives us something so that we're not so behind the eight ball and being controlled.
Mm-hmm.
Jeannie, thank you so much. Before we go, let me ask you, tell me a little bit about the book, The Emotionally Intelligent Pastor.
Yes.
What's the thrust of that book?
Yes. If you're familiar with emotional intelligence, it lines it out, and it also includes scripture and relates it also to the church world, but really anyone can benefit from it. You can find it on Amazon.com, The Emotionally Intelligent Pastor, or the Wesleyan Publishing House. The thrust of it is basically what we were saying, being healthy yourself and being able to be relationally savvy, how to connect with people, build trust, manage conflict, empower your leaders in your organization, those types of things. But it all starts from the inside out. We have to be in tune with our own emotions and manage those well, and then we're in a better place to relate with others and guide those interactions.
That's great. I can't think of a better time to get that book if you're a pastor, even if you're a leader. There are, and I have the book, there are a lot of great points in the book that you need, that it was written before the pandemic, but now that has highlighted this need for us to be more emotionally intelligent. Jeannie, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for inviting me on, Scott. I've enjoyed it.
All right. Hang on a second while I close out the show. This has been another episode of the Fridays on Excellence show, where we dig into 6 areas of life and see what we can find to become more excellent. I'm Scott Kokenauer, transition strategist, and I'm so glad you've taken out time out to tune in. I'll see you next week.